Former Vice President Dick Cheney says that he will vote for Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. Now, let me get this out of the way right off the top. I've been completely grossed out by this story and the reaction that I've been seeing online from quite a few people on the left, but I promise we're gonna get all into all of that here in this. But first, right off the top, let's get into this. So this is from the AP News. We can put this up on the screen now. This says that former Vice President Dick Cheney says that he will vote for Kamala Harris. Now, this came after a recent discussion with Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney being former Vice President Dick Cheney's daughter. She was also a former congresswoman, Republican congresswoman for the state of Wyoming up until the 2022 midterm elections. We'll get into that a little bit as well. But here is Liz Cheney discussing her father, who is going to be voting for Kamala Harris in this cycle. Here's the clip.
Dick Cheney, your father, a beloved figure among Democrats for many, many years. Do you, if you know who he will be supporting or who he'll be voting for, do you care to share with us who he might be voting for?
Dick Cheney will be voting for Kamala Harris.
Okay. Wow. Words I never expected to hear.
Yeah. If you think about the moment that we're in, and you think about how serious this moment is. My dad believes, and he's said publicly, that there's never been an individual in our country who is as grave a threat to our democracy as Donald Trump is.
So this isn't the biggest surprise in the world. We have seen plenty of Republicans come out against Trump, especially within the last year during the Republican primaries specifically. But this is something that we just typically don't see in American politics. Seeing a former, member of the White House from the opposing party coming out and endorsing a member of the opposite party. So a former a Republican vice president coming out and endorsing a Democratic candidate for office against the current Republican, it is truly something that we just do not see in our politics. But this is a unique case. For those who might not remember or who just don't know whatsoever, Donald Trump came after Liz Cheney hard 2 years ago in the 2022 midterms, went to Wyoming, campaigned against her, endorsed her primary challenger. This all came after Liz Cheney voted to impeach Trump after January 6th, came out really hard against him. And so he went to Wyoming, endorsed candidate, so on and so forth. The the end result really was that Liz Cheney was in fact ousted from office. Her primary opponent did in fact defeat her. But before all that happened, her father tried to get involved with the race and tried to, make his pitch for why the people of Wyoming should vote for his daughter. And, to that end, he put out a video condemning Donald Trump. So here's the clip of that video.
In our nation's 246-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He is a coward. A real man wouldn't lie to his supporters. He lost his election, and he lost big. I know it, he knows it, and deep down, I think most Republicans know it.
So now fast forwarding to 2024, a lot of the stuff that he said in that video is also stuff that he said in his official public statement when he did, in fact, endorse Kamala Harris. We're going to put this up on the screen now. This is the official statement from former Vice President Dick Cheney, to where he talks about, again, in our nation's 248-year history, there's never been a individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the election using lies. He can never be trusted with power again. As citizens, we have a duty to put country above partisanship, defend our Constitution. This is why I'll be casting my vote for Kamala Harris. Now, this, again, when I first heard this story come across the wire, I had so many different thoughts. But I was really curious to see how people are going to be reacting to this online, because we live in such a hyper partisan moment that I wasn't sure if people were going to be completely going against this because of who Dick Cheney was, or if people are going to be embracing it because people seem to just have selective amnesia whenever they feel it's convenient. So wasn't sure exactly where we were going to go, but there is a couple things that need to be pointed out first. And I'm glad that I did see some people pointing it out. And, while I'm not a really big into always like sharing a bunch of tweets and stuff on videos, I think I'm gonna make an exception here for this video. So we're gonna put this one first up on the screen. This is by Emma Viglan. I know who Emma is. She's, part of the Majority Reports. I apologize if I'm butchering your name here. But she put it here in her tweet, Dick Cheney trying to rebrand as Captain America, democracy lover is hilarious. His ticket stopped the 2000 recount. He helped install public puppet regimes in Iraq and Afghanistan. Will of the people of those countries be damned? He lied to the US public to justify an illegal war. And I wanted to share that because it's kind of a pretext into how I'm feeling about all of this. Dick Cheney is truly a monster. Just full stop. Dick Cheney is fully a monster. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, I've had multiple conversations over the years where I have laid out the case, and this may be very controversial to, anyone listening right now, but I put out the case that I actually believe that George Bush and his tenure has actually done more damage to the world than Donald Trump and his tenure. And a lot of people on the left gave me a lot of flack for that. And, I'm willing to defend my position on that. It's not that I'm downplaying Donald Trump and what he has done, not just to the country, but to the world, because he actually has effects on other countries as well. But when I think about the totality of it, the totality of what the Bush administration did to this country and to the world at large, I don't know. I think some people are so far removed from that administration that it almost just feels like they've just, again, selective amnesia. You just kind of just forgot. But I mean, here's the thing. Dick Cheney was the architect of the Iraq War, a war that he lied us into. He and George Bush lied us into, saying that there were weapons of mass destruction that there never were. As a result of this, the Watson Institute of Brown University, they put the death toll of Iraqis, both being from direct killing and from subsequent associated deaths, around 4 to 6 million people in Iraq, civilians almost entirely, who died in a war that we were never supposed to be involved into. And not only that, but you think about all the people who enlisted in this country, who thought that they were rising up to defend the country from like terrorism, who thought that they were going over there to fight for some righteous cause, who laid down their lives. Thousands of Americans who never came home, or the ones who did came home with either physical disabilities, mental disabilities, things that they're never going to get over, trauma that they're never going to recover from. It's absolutely just heartbreaking thinking about the devastation that was caused by that war. And again, Dick Cheney might be more responsible for that than even George Bush was, even though George Bush was the president. And it wasn't even just the Iraq War. Think about the things that came from that. Guantanamo Bay, all of the torture that was involved, black sites, in America and around the world, the surveillance state, that we still live with to this day, the Patriot Act, all of the different civil liberties that we no longer have, that were essentially taken away from us decades ago, that we never got back, that we told were temporary, became permanent. And also, the destruction, again, not just the death in Iraq, but the destruction of their country, destruction of their government. The country's never recovered from that. ISIS rose out of the abyss that was the ruins of that country. The list really goes on. So to think that this person is all of a sudden now, and I've seen plenty of takes online, is being applauded, or saying like, oh well, if Dick Cheney can come together with us in this moment, like, Republicans should really think about that. It's like listen, okay, if Dick Cheney wants to go and endorse Kamala Harris, whatever, but I don't think anyone should be happy about this endorsement. When I first saw this, all I could think about was, please disavow this endorsement. And I was not the only person who was thinking this way. I saw, this from a creator that I, follow consistently. This is from Kyle Kalinske, who pulls up on the screen here, where he says, she should thank him for the endorsement and then arrest him for war crimes. And again, could not could not agree more. I mean, just could not agree more whatsoever. Like, I understand that we're living in a really partisan time, but how far have are you like actually falling off the moral cliff to where you can't even disavow the endorsement of an absolute monster because that's how much you really want to win the election at what cost? And I understand maybe some politician like there's nothing that they wouldn't do, but like how about the rest of us who are just somehow like tacitly like normalizing this? There should be nothing normalized here. Dick Cheney is not someone that we should ever normalize. That person should be in prison for the rest of his life. And again, I'm gonna put this next tweet up on the screen here. This is from an account that says like Ashley Stevens, talking about how it's not only fully embracing Dick Cheney, but bragging that he supports Kamala Harris in 2024. After we said that we were going to push Biden to the left, we're just fully embracing fascism. And underneath where it says, Satan himself could endorse Kamala, and instead of recognizing the red flags, Democrats would celebrate. And it just this election has put such a moral, I guess, quandary on me in ways that I've never felt in my life. Especially from what we're seeing in Gaza, knowing that that's happening under the Biden administration. I think the corner that I personally feel that I'm in, and I'm sure a lot of people feel that they're in, feeling like like are they going to support Kamala Harris? It just feels like it gets like murkier and murkier day after day. And to see this, on top of all of that, it just absolutely grosses me out, And so I put this tweet up on the screen. This is actually from Threads, where I said that our tent is now big enough to include the architect of a forever war who's directly responsible for the deaths of millions of civilians, but there wasn't space for a Palestinian to speak at the DNC. And, it just, the hypocrisy to a degree is almost becoming too much. I mean, like it's bad enough, like what situation that we're forced to be in with this two-party system, kind of choosing the lesser of two genocides. It's absolutely gross to think, like what situation that we're constantly stuck in and how these two parties make it damn near impossible for a third party to even exist in the first place. That's for another video that we'll be getting to this week. But it's just I just don't know how much further, they expect to like really push people's morality before people just check out altogether. And the hypocrisy, again, it just seems to know no end. I'm going to put this up on the screen here from Brianna Joy Gray, where she talks about how it's extremely funny that liberals made Bernie denounce Joe Rogan's quasi endorsement, but celebrate Dick Cheney, one of the most evil men of our generation, joining Team Kamala. And underneath Zed Jelani, journalist was talking about, again, something similar to what I just said. If Dick Cheney wants to vote for Harris, whatever, why Harris thinks it's a good idea to tout his endorsement is a different question. And you're probably thinking to yourself, Kamala Harris, maybe she would have enough sense to know to like at the very least not acknowledge this endorsement. Like maybe it's one thing to be like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's cool or whatever. But don't actually embrace this endorsement, right? You would think that she would understand how bad that would look, right?
Actually, I'm honored to have their endorsement, and I think that what they both, as leaders who are well respected, are making an important statement that it's okay, and if not important, to put country above party. And I'm honored to have their support, and I think it's an important statement right now. A lot of what I think is happening, and I was just talking with some folks here in Pittsburgh about it, is that people are exhausted about the division and the attempts to kind of divide us as Americans. And them stepping up to make this public statement, I think, is courageous, but also for people like the folks I was just talking with, it really reinforces for them that we love our country and we have more in common than what separates us.
So I'm gonna wrap this conversation up by this because I was absolutely just floored seeing her reaction to all of this. Because I was actually in the process of making this video when I came across that last clip, not knowing that she actually had been asked about it publicly and that she had already addressed this, to which I got even more grossed out than I already was, to be completely frank. Kamala Harris is pivoting so hard to the right. And I would love to hear some people's comments on this. If you wanted to comment on this video, send me a DM on Instagram. She is, talking about like people are bringing up, positions she used to hold. Like, do you still support Medicare for all? No. Do you still support banning plastic straws? Really minor thing, but like, no. Do you still support a ban on fracking? No, she does not. She's going out and being as, like hawkish as Republicans are, really neocon like, just like rhetoric when she was talking at the DNC about having the fiercest fighting force in human history. Her policies on immigration are going to look exactly, basically the way like Biden's were or Trump's are, which, they're honestly not too dissimilar whatsoever. This hard pivot to the right, I just don't understand who it's for at the end of the day. Republicans aren't voting for you. They're not. I mean, what you're doing is kind of, again, it's what Democrats seem to do like better than anything, which is, just, alienate the left. The people who are supposed to be your base, the people who want to come out and vote for you because they do not like Republicans. And yet here you are like embracing Dick Cheney and everything else that we just talked about. I mean, how far do you think you can push people before they decide that they're just not going to vote for you? And yeah, people on the left probably are never going to vote for Republicans, but they might vote third party or they might not vote at all. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to take that option this election, which is why I can't honestly tell where Kamala Harris sits right now. Like, is there a lot of popularity surrounding her right now? Is there a lot of excitement, enthusiasm surrounding her right now? Yes, but how many people are also checking out that like polls can't measure? There's no real way to know that until November, but I have to say, at the rate that she's going, I wonder if she's actually, on one hand, maybe pulling in a few boomers here and there, while also on the back end losing a bunch of people who are the progressive younger voters. And by younger, I don't mean like 18, 19, 20-year-olds, but we are a generation here, millennials, for instance, who are all in our 30s, who would want to show up and vote for this candidate. How many of those people are going to sit this one out? I don't know. In an election this close, where the margins are this close in every single swing state, I just feel like decisions like this can ultimately be the things that, one of the decisions that decides one of these swing states at the end of the day. But I'd love to hear from all of you on this. Please leave your comments down below. If you liked this video, please leave a like on it. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching this video of Independent Thought. If you liked the conversation, please go ahead and give the video itself a like, and be sure to subscribe for future episodes on the channel.